to 13th Destiny Podcast. I'm your host today, and we said that we would have a big surprise as a guest speaker. But I first want you to listen to this music that I'm going to play for you. And it's going to be, you can see if you could guess from this music. Ready, set. It just won't take it's a wonderful song. It'll just take a couple minutes. Ready, set, go.
Down in South Central Kentucky is a man, folks call him lucky, at fighting off coyotes with his hands. A guy living out a dream on the side of extreme, a life others don't understand. James Magnum, he's not your regular Joe. James Magnum, he's always on the go. He'll shoot you with his camera. You can run, but you can't hide. James Magnum, private eye. Athena, his partner in crime. She waits out in the drive for another mission to unfold. Models and caliber films are just another side of him. There's more to his story than can be told. James Magnum, he's not your regular Joe. James Magnum, he's always on the go. He'll shoot you with his camera. You can run, but you can't hide. James Magnum, private eye. Dashing across the country, he may show up at your door, seeking adventure, a life that's never bored. James Magnum, he's not your regular Joe. James Magnum, he's always on the go. He'll shoot you with his camera. You can run, but you can't hide. James Magnum, private eye. James Magnum, he's not your regular Joe. James Magnum, he's always on the go. He'll shoot you with his camera. You can run, but you can't hide. James Magnum, private eye. Down in South Central Kentucky is a man, folks call him lucky, at fighting off coyotes with his hands.
All right.
Well,
may I introduce James Magnum as our guest. Hi.
hello, Danielle, and good to be the guest with you taking control of the center chair, as I call it today, and being the host. It's a little different. So I get to be the guest today. This was kind of a last-minute thing, but I appreciate you deciding that we were going to do me as the guest. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's go from there.
So that song, tell me about it. What happened? How did you get a song
Well,
written by and yeah.
Written and performed by a gentleman by the name of Rick Ryman. Rick Ryman is a entertainer out here. Does a lot of entertainment here in Kentucky and Tennessee in this area. He does some other places too. He's been around for a little while. I met him several years ago when I shot some photos for him for a cover when his original manager and I had become friends. And today, in the last year, we've had some talks, and it was just kind of a cute little thing, a story that was going around about me on the coyote part that had happened. And I'd had a previous song, a limited release from the band Side Pony out of Nashville, But Rick said, I think we need to do one and add this in. And I didn't think any more of it. And then Rick came to me and sent me a rough cut of it. And then the cut that you just heard there is the studio add-in by a man named Jerry Webb with Rick down in Nashville in the last couple of weeks. And it just has stuck, and a lot of people have got a kick out of it. It's on limited release right now to friends and others, and hopefully in the next week or so we should be able to get it out to Spotify and other locations. I'm working to get that done. But Rick just had a lot of fun with that. I haven't been an official private eye for several years now, but it's kind of what everybody remembers how I started, and so he added that in, and he added in a lot of the new stuff. And of course, the Coyote story just makes it fun.
I thought it was really, it has a catchy tune, and I think it's really, really cute.
It is cute, yeah.
But people, maybe you could put the song underneath somehow, in the comment section, or somehow,
Yes, I'm going to see.
Have a link to it.
I'm going to see if we can do that. I'm not sure if I can do that, but I think I might be able to. But also the fact that it's on the podcast today, that's pretty cool. But it'd be nice to get it out to everybody where you can download it, and it will be. And we're going to try to get it out for free for everybody because I've been given permission to use the song and put it out for everybody. And it's kind of, it's going to promote Rick, obviously, because a lot of people don't know who Rick is, except out in this area, or people who've ever seen him in live performance. But certainly some other stuff I've done for other people that have done things about me, I will certainly promote for him that song. Obviously, it's my song, it's about me, but obviously I always try to help the people who help me. It's just something I always try to do.
Wow. That's a wonderful thing to have done, to someone write a song. It's so funny. I laughed at it with the coyote and all that. It's funny.
Yeah, everyone has gotten a kick out of the coyote thing. I think I saw a comment last night. I can't remember. A friend of mine named Brent Phelps, I believe he said something to the effect of something that was cool as hell, and I was cracking up laughing because he's not known for saying stuff like that. And I was like, oh, well, look how it gets this really it's really catching on here, huh? I guess so. But I've had fun with it. It's a fun song, obviously, and it's a little bit it's a little bit more than some of the it goes with the more upside of my life and stuff, and I like that. So yeah,
it's really good. Congratulations there.
Thank you.
So as of interviewing you, the people don't know who you are. Who are you? What's your name? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, okay.
All that kind of stuff.
Right, okay. Well, I grew up here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I was born on June 14, 1968, at the old county hospital that was up on Hospital Hill. Then that's what it was called then. I lived here until about 19. I did a brief service in the I did reserve entry program the last 2 years of my high school, and went to military service, but I was going to be part-time in the National Guard. But unfortunately,
wait. Let's go back to being an Eagle Scout.
Oh yeah, I did become an Eagle Scout in '86, and that was one of my big accomplishments. And that was followed by being we'll follow that real quick. That was followed by being the youngest licensed private investigator in the United States at that time. I started training when I was 17 in high school. Was still in high school with my birthday and everything, turning 18, and a funny story about how the Magnum came up. So Magnum PI was extremely popular back then, and there was a small newspaper article, a school newspaper article, that was talking about people going into the military and various things they were going to do. And while part of my part was in that article was part-time in the military, and also being a private investigator, that I already got the license, and that I would be doing PI work part-time when I wasn't doing that. So that's kind of how that all started. And I was going down the hall one day, and after this article came out, and these guys come down the hall, and at first it kind of bothered me because it was like, oh my goodness, it's one of those things where you go back and you look at it, it's like, and then they're yelling, hey Magnum, and at first, it's one of those things, where they're teasing you and stuff because of the whole, and then I go, you know what, that's actually not a bad nickname compared to something some people could call you. So I started incorporating that early on, after they started calling me. And then they kind of caught on because other people started calling me that too. Then I would leave for a brief time, but I got discharged after I went in on active duty due to what's called stress-induced asthma and wasp sting. So these two things combined were a difficult situation about trying to stay in the military and even in the Guard. So I was discharged, and I came back here.
Why'd you go in the military?
Well, my family had military background. My dad had been in the Air Force. My sister had been in the Army. A lot of uncles had been in the Air Force, Army, various things. So, it's just kind of one of those things where I guess it was just one of those things where I wanted to do. I wanted to go in the military service, and...
So you didn't want to be a private eye?
No, I didn't. I already was private eye, so it didn't really matter on that because I already...
Right. Did you work as one?
Yes, I worked as one. Although let's talk about at 18 in high school not having the respect that I would get later. Obviously, I got a lot of really weird things, and sometimes I'd get other students coming to me wanting me to find stuff for them, things, But I did also some things for people, in which I always joked when the Pet Detective movie came out because I was like, oh yeah, I did some private eye work early on for that, kind of stuff, looking for people's pet. But that's the kind of thing that as a young private investigator, you're not getting that respect, and a lot of people don't really, they find it hard to believe that you have that license. But I had the business license here in Bowling Green. It was called Bluegrass Investigations. That's what it was, and that was the company that I owned at 8. I owned this company at 18. But I didn't get a lot of really good cases. I didn't get a lot because of my age and people just not giving me the respect that I would gain later. Now, I say that not to be mean or anything. It's just I understand now, being older, that it's very hard for someone to understand that you're an 18-year-old private investigator. It's almost unheard of, and at that time it was extremely unheard of. As far as I know, I was the first. I think there might be some in law enforcement explorers and things like that now with we go back to the Boy Scouts and stuff. There may be some of that. I don't know. I haven't looked it up, but I do know at that time I was the only one, and I was the youngest.
Yeah, but all the better. People wouldn't suspect you.
Do what now?
People wouldn't suspect you.
No. Well, that's and that was
that would be all the better, if you're that young to go on cases and snap pictures and do whatever, because no one would be suspecting a young kid.
Right, and they still wasn't suspecting me, even as I would, and we'll get to that in a minute. They still weren't suspecting me, even as I moved on and did security consultant work a few years later, and also incorporated some investigations into the security consultant firm. But I was in Georgia. So what happens here? I returned from the military, and of course, I took a job. I took a job that my former scoutmaster at that time, because I'd been an assistant scoutmaster the last year, also something else I had done that before I left, and he got me a job of another former Eagle Scout. Well, I can't borrow Eagle Scouts. They're always Eagle Scouts. So, but anyway, but that's what I'm saying. Another former member of the troop. Excuse me. And he was managing Shoney's at that time. And so this was the only job I could get as far as outside of my own stuff when I came back. But I really still wasn't getting anything. And of course now I've kind of had a failure, is what we'll call it. And but I didn't know how my life was going to play out. So there's going to be a lot of ups and downs in my life. So 3 weeks into this, I had, among one of my many car crashes, I crashed the truck that I was in, at about, I don't know, I want to say about probably 50, 60 miles an hour, in a zone that today is 45 mile zone there, and they have a lot of barriers and stuff there. At that time they didn't. The city has grown a whole lot, and I ended up hitting a car in the rear end. So I ended up totaling this vehicle, going off of, and then it went, because I tried to turn not hitting it when the brakes went out, and I tried not to hit it, and I still hit it, and I hit it and knocked a bunch into a bunch of others, and still went over into the field and everything. Minor.
Is that your fault?
Yeah, I was at fault. Yeah, even though the brakes, I was still at fault because rear end collisions here is automatic.
Yes.
So
right.
So it's automatic. And at this point, I ended up getting taken back to my home eventually. I eventually had to walk 6 miles to go to a payphone, call my parents a couple days later and tell them in Georgia that all this had happened. I was literally back from the military, staying in the house. I was staying in the house that we still owned, but I was laying under a sleeping bag, nothing in the house but me and this. So in the sleep. Yeah, it was kind of a bad situation, and this was in like. This was like excuse me, I think this was in July. Yeah, this was just July of '87 into August, early August when this happened. And of course, you're talking pretty hot here, and even hotter in Georgia. So I went to them and told them what was going on. And I said, well, I don't know. I guess I'm just going to have to come to Georgia for a while. I said, everything's gone sour here. And I said, well, so they came and got me. And this is one of the downtimes of my life, which I talked about this also on another podcast that's coming up on Mindful Mutiny. So a lot of this is going to get crossed over with the stuff that we're doing today. So
so where does the youngest president CEO of security consultant
that we're going to get to? We're going to get to that. We're going to get.
22.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Okay, so this was right before that. So
yeah.
What we have is you at 18. You become a private eye, then you go into the military.
Yeah, and at 19,
like not approved because of asthma.
Well, I was there.
Now you're at home.
Right, I was there for a few weeks, and I had a couple blackout sessions, and they were doing tests on me and various things, and they finally figured out that. And then they also did the WASP, and they're like, between the two of them, that was just double jeopardy on me as far as staying in the military. The weird thing about that is, and I always talk about this. The weird thing about that was, though, when I came back, I really have never had I've had some minor things with the asthma, but one of the things that my former scoutmaster had told me to do, he'd had the inhalers, and he told me, and they'd give it to the military, and they'd also give it, and he was a doctor, but he was a doctor chiropractor, and at first I didn't take this, and he looked at me and he said, well, if you use these things, you're going to become addicted to these. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, throw them away. And I was like, what? They told me not to. He said, throw them away. I am so glad that he told me to throw them away, because the wasp sting I've been able to control with Benadryl pretty much for the most part. I've never had to go to, I have swollen up. I've never had to go to the hospital over it. Benadryl was just taking it in just a short period. And the asthma's never given me a serious issue because I did not use the inhalers, and I never have since I left. But yeah, I get tight sometimes every once in a while. Yeah, but
yeah. So you're sleeping, but where I find you left off is that you were sleeping on the ground.
On the floor of the house that I grew up in. Nothing in the house but me, the sleeping bag, no air, no nothing. I mean,
Where's your parents?
My parents were in Georgia at the time. They'd already moved to Georgia, but we still owned the house.
Oh, they moved to Georgia.
Yeah, where I will. Well, I will eventually.
Okay.
Well, I will eventually end up shortly. So at 19, so at 19, I've turned. Now remember, my birthday's in June. I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, at June 8, and then I turned 19. So I'll be 19 at this point. So when I came back, I was 19, and then I would be 19 when I moved to Georgia. Well, Georgia's got some different laws, different things, and of course I didn't look into a lot of stuff. There were some things I could have probably done instead of doing what I did, but sometimes you listen to your parents and sometimes they're wrong, and I just didn't focus on it because I had too much other stuff going on. So being under that stress and not wanting to go under any other stress and go back to what had just happened in the military, I moved to Georgia, and the first job that I got, now remember I'd worked at the Shoney's here, first job I got there was at the Shoney's with a guy by the name of Don Tabor was the manager there, and Don Tabor will be a part of the things in my life, and still is a part of my life. His wife is on my Facebook, and he is now a judge in that county, but we'll get to this in a minute, and as we play out parts of my life. So I go there. I've got no job. I've got no vehicle. Luckily, my parents only lived about a mile from this Shoney's, and so what I would end up doing is, for the first 7 months that I lived there, I ended up walking back and forth to this job every day to build up the money to buy a vehicle and everything. And this vehicle will also be part of the stories and stuff as we go along. And I've had a lot of vehicle wrecks and stuff, and that's something that I've survived a lot of things, including deer. But that's kind of trivia stuff. You can find this stuff out about me. It's not that hard, but we'll give you the general story over how this goes. Well, I cannot work. I'm not realizing that I could work in unarmed security. I'm not realizing things that I know today. I'm not realizing or working. And the laws were different there. You had to go through boards and stuff for the PI work. But anyway, I didn't get to learn all that like you can now. Just call something on a computer. You got to do a lot of groundwork. Well, doing groundwork when you're walking back and forth from a job is kind of hard to do. Well, lo and behold, however, I will befriend the criminal investigator of the sheriff's department, the son of the sheriff at that time, who's now sheriff of Stevens County and still my friend. But we'll get to also that in a minute. So there's a lot of players in this story of how my life played out. So I go and I walk for 7 months, and I eventually get the money. And I found in South Carolina, I found what was a red 1985 Buick Skylark. Okay. So 7 months in,
I remember those cars.
Yeah, very, very interesting car.
Yes.
Yeah. So I go and I tell my mom. I said, let's go to South Carolina. And my dad was like, "There's no way you're going to get them." And like I told him, I said, "I'm going to get them to pay the taxes across the." And he was like, "You're not going to get that done. They're not going to do it." And then my dad had some doubts with some things with me sometimes. And then when I would do them, it was so funny. I was like, he would go, "Well, I knew you were stubborn enough to do this." I'm like, "Yeah, it kind of runs in the family." But anyway, so that's just a joke with me and the family. But I go across there, and so my mom took me over there, and we were really talking to her. And I was like, "Yeah, I'd like to buy this car today, and this is how much money I have, but I can't pay the taxes and stuff across the line back into Georgia and all that." I said, "I'll pay you today. I'll give you all this money, and this is all cash, by the way. This is all cash back in, when this was going on." And so you're like, "Well, let me see what I can do." Went in there, and I was waiting. It's like, man, it felt like it was forever, right? Because you're waiting for them to make a decision. So he talked to a couple people, and they come back out, and he said, "Yep." And he said, "We can do that." And so the rest is history on that side. I drove the car back, and my dad, that's one of the first times that my dad goes, "I cannot believe you did what you did." And I was like, "Well, you should learn by now that I'm going to do what, it's not expected." So I'm always just like not in the norm of a lot of things in my life. When things go wrong, I work them through and eventually come out on top. Sometimes I get knocked way down, but I come out on top. It's kind of a survival thing with me. So we do that, and I keep that car for a while. And there's three things that happen. There's three very interesting things that happen at 21. So at 21, I managed the stupidest thing I could, and I'll joke about it. Stupid it was. I had a very bad speeding problem for a long time, which also caused a lot of my accidents. And I'm lucky to be alive because I was just really, really bad about it. So at 21, from the time I turned 21, here are some ups and downs. I get 3 speeding tickets in a row, between the 2 in the state of Georgia. Let me tell you. Oh my God. Let me tell you. 3 speeding tickets, 2 in the state of Georgia. And the state of Georgia is really bad about some things. I mean, you get to a certain. Now it's a whole lot worse because it's. I think now, if I remember correct, it's like a total criminal offense at this speed of one of them. Whereas in my time, it was like, even that, as long as you weren't extremely reckless, they would just write this and you would drive on the ticket. So I get one, and I was like, good night. So no problem, paid that. I was with, I guess part of the story is that I was with a woman that I was with at that time, and we'd moved in together, and I had left the Shoney's. I was the kitchen manager when I left, and on 89, and we moved in together, and I had started working security for a security company, and was trying to work my way back into security investigations, all that kind of stuff. And so this is my platform here to kind of go into that. Because at that time you had to take a 40-hour course just to be a security officer. I got that. And the guy that owned the company that I worked for actually was a former evidence officer for the Hall County Sheriff's Department in Hall County. And we lived in Louisville, which is also in Hall County, which is not Stevens County, the county that my parents lived in. And one morning, it was and it wasn't like this like massive argument. It was just one of those things where I had this bad tendency. If something went, I would jump in the car, and especially if I was late, I would speed to work. Bad move. Bad move. And I admit it's a bad move. And I'm speeding down, towards Gainesville. At that time I worked for Lakeshore Mall, but I worked for Security Systems, which is out of business. This company's out of business, by the way. And of course, also it's a conflict of interest. The sheriff had an interest in the company then in that county with his former evidence officer, and you can't do that anymore because they passed laws. Those are conflicts of interest. Sheriffs being in security companies while they're still active, which is a good thing. So I am literally flying down this road, not realize. I'm thinking I'm in the higher zone, and I'm in the 55 mile zone, and I'm doing 93 and a 55, and I'm like, and all of a sudden, this sheriff's Mustang gets in behind me, and I'm like, I'm just like, well, okay, well, I'm in trouble now. So I just kind of laugh about it. Pulled over, he comes up there. Of course, I'm in uniform, and their uniforms and our uniforms are very similar, which is another issue back in those days. And he walks up there, and he goes, "Oh, so you work for my boss, basically?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "To Lakeshore Mall." I said, "Going to work?" He said, "Yeah, I'll be back in a minute." I was like, "Oh boy, it's 90." It's like, and he goes, when he comes back up here and writes me the ticket for 93 and the 55, and he goes, and then Georgia had to drive on the ticket at the time, so they take your license, you have to drive on the ticket till you go to court and all this stuff. And this was my third ticket because I'd got one with her, the Bluegrass, not Bluegrass, excuse me, with the task force in South Carolina on the 4th of July. So this is all going on, right? And I got a pending case against SunTrust Bank Corporation too at this time. So all of this is going upside down, and I'm going, I've got to like get this straightened out because it's a mess, right? So I got a bunch of messes going on, and I'm like, okay. So I end up going to court on this one. I've hired an attorney. And this is where I would play out for my next court case, where I decided, you know what, I don't know that I needed an attorney. I'm getting kind of tired of this when you hire one and then you find out you kind of didn't need them. A lot of people like to say you're a fool for not having an attorney, but sometimes that's not necessarily true. And I will play that out. So we go to court, and I have this, I can't remember her name. I wish I could remember her name because she ended up being in one of my introduction to law classes the next year at Gainesville College that I was doing. And I wish I could remember her name. I cannot remember the top of my head. I probably got it somewhere. But she actually turned out to be a very nice judge. She was and I wish I could remember her name just because she was very nice. And a lot of people don't get that, in first impression, especially when you're that young and you're dealing with thinking and going, okay, well, here we go. So, yeah, she comes out, and that's just another reason I wish I could remember her name. So she's asking me, and the deputies didn't show up. They did not show up for court, which is always a good thing from what I hear. And all she asked me, she said, "Were you speeding that day, Mr. Cook?" And I was like, "Yes, ma'am, I was speeding. I just didn't think I was going that fast." They said it was. So she said, "Well, I don't think you were." She said, "I have a car like that too." And she said, "I don't think you were." So she said, "I'm going to tell you what, I'm just going to have you pay the court cost, and I'm going to give you a loan." And she said, "Don't get in any trouble for 5 years." I was like, oh, I'm like, oh, okay. So she lets me plead this, what's called NOLO, and just says that she didn't believe I was going that fast and just has me pay the court costs. And I'm like, okay, well, this worked out kind of good. And then on the other hand, the 5 year thing about not getting in any, what? She was referring to speeding or anything like that. And of course, I'm a bad speeder. Like, good night. I'm like, but now I did adjust, and I didn't get any speeding tickets for that 5 years. So, but I'm going to be honest. We can't say I didn't speed anywhere. I just didn't speed in Georgia. But anyway, I might have spit a little bit back here in the hometown, a little bit. Yeah, probably see that. But so that played out pretty good. And then of course I saw her a year later. I really wish I could remember her name. I really do, because she was really nice. And
okay, so hey, okay, where does you becoming?
Okay, that's what we're gonna get. That's what we're gonna get to. What we're gonna get to. Okay. Now remember,
I'm like thinking,
it's all.
You're talking about all this stuff, and I'm just like,
no, it's almost there. It's almost there. It's almost there. So it's almost there. So I got to play into 2 incidents that happened before we get to age 22, where I have the security consultant firm. So the final 2 incidents of 21 are, I'm at Lakeshore Mall on patrol. And we'd had a problem with speeders inside of the parking lot, and I was told to stop the hot rodders. Okay. My thought process is, you told me to stop the hot rodders. How am I supposed to stop them, right? Without getting backup from police, Gainesville PD or whatever. So we had like a little hill in the back near the JCPenney, which I would also do some loss prevention in between there before I go be a security consultant. And these 2 vehicles are charging down the hill. I turn in and I realize I've got a choice here. These are teenagers. I've got a choice here. I cannot take them head on, because I could kill one of them taking them head on. I know this. And I'm like, I've got no backup from police here at this point. The radio call was made that we needed help. Obviously, that we had a problem out there. But this problem is about to become a whole lot worse for me. My decision, I don't regret my decision one bit. But I was going pretty good lick myself and realizing I could kill these people we hit head on. Or myself, because I've got no seatbelt on. We weren't wearing seatbelts at the time. I turned trying to get out of the way of them and get away from them so I don't hit them, and hit a concrete and steel stop sign at probably at least 30 miles an hour. And
wow.
And like literally hit. That's what someone said. I don't know how fast I was going, because I really don't remember this part, and I'm going to tell you why we don't remember this part. And this plays out part as we will go on, and where I'll be told I will never work again in security, a bunch of other stuff, but that's not true. I hit that, and the last thing I remember is we had those old type nightsticks and things on our belt, and it hit so hard it snapped that, and the nightstick went spinning around inside the cab of the truck, hit me in the side of the head. There are witnesses to this back in that day in '89 that said that I literally got out and I was stumbling around like I was drunk. It wasn't I was drunk. I hit. And when that nightstick spun and hit me in the head is the reason that and then I passed out back into the truck. And the next thing I remember is I'm being woke up by the paramedics, and of course all I see is light and this girl, and I'm thinking I'm dead. I'm thinking like, what is this, like an angel or whatever? Because all I see is all this light around me, and it's just her face. I don't see the bad. I don't see anything. I don't see anything in. I don't none of that stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm dead. And she goes, no, you're not. Which is kind of a funny part of the story. And then I realize as I'm coming to, I'm going, oh my God, what the heck? I'm like, oh. And she said, we're getting you an ambulance. She said, you're going to take you to the hospital. So I go to the hospital. I'm laying in the hospital. And I'm like, well, I'm in some serious trouble. First off, I just wrecked a security vehicle. That's great. I'm in the hospital. No one from the company comes to see me, the owner, nobody, lieutenant, my superiors, nobody. Who comes to see me? Now, not the teenagers that I had just had the incident with, but a couple others that I dealt with there that, had we weren't really, because I still have to do my job. I'm not really friends with them, but I'm friendly with them. There's a difference. And they showed up checking to make sure I was okay. And I was like, and I've never forgotten that. And it changed some perspective from things on me. It's like, don't always assume that all these hanging out are all bad because, that's what they're telling you. And it turned out that's not the case. Okay, so following this, I would have to have another court case against the company, because he was saying that there was no way he was going to pay my medical bills, all this stuff. And of course, we know workman's comp, you have to, regardless of who has at fault. And I didn't want anything but my medical bills. And my lieutenant would do a deposition, and he would back me up on everything that happened. And I was surprised that he did, because he took a risk on his job to defend me and everything, and tell the truth. And he told the truth, and I'll never forget that either. And but I heard, you'll never work in security again, you'll never work at the PI again, you'll never do this, you'll never do that, because you're suing the company. I'm like, and we'll see what happens. We'll see how that plays out. Well, at the same time, I'm also suing SunTrust over a issue with my credit thing that they're trying to mess with. They're trying to say that, that I took this money out that I didn't. I had plenty of proof, and I was able to prove it. So I win these two cases. And so I beat the security company, and I won that. And then I beat SunTrust at 21 years of age. And the judge, because they wouldn't show up for court, I presented my case. The judge ruled after 3 times. He said, I told them to show up this morning. They didn't show up. So this is where this plays out going into the age 22. Okay, so at age 22, I started the security consultant firm. It was Cook Security Consultant Agency, and then, of course, we had some investigative stuff with it, too, even though it wasn't full private eye stuff, even though it kind of says that, on my LinkedIn. But it's kind of a gray area. I did more security consulting than I did investigation stuff. So but I did do some investigations under the disguise of the security consultant agency. But so I had this at 22. I'm the youngest presidency, and then there's a big event that happens in Toccoa, Georgia at this time, and every media outlet in the book is down in Toccoa, Georgia. This is going to be a year prior to me also running for office, and what happens at this point is I've got this security consultant. I got this security consultant firm, and now I'm the youngest on that. And all these people show up, CNN, you name it, they're down there. Every newspaper, everything in the book. And it's all over people saying that yoga is satanic. And I'm like, what? What?
Yeah, that's weird.
Okay, it's very weird today. They've changed their tune a lot today, but it was a small Christian. It was considered like kind of a Christian community in a way. Had a Christian college in the area at Toccoa Falls. I kind of got where they were coming from, but they were so far back on some things. And I mean, there are some spiritual things in India too, but this was just for exercise, and they were blowing it way out of proportion. And I think after the overflow meetings and stuff, I think they realized that. And I think they got a lot of bad press off of it. Now, this is where things are going to start turning around for me. I go to that meeting, I'm there, and I see all this, and I go, okay, well, something needs to change. Now, I'm not going to run on this because it's so controversial, but I go, we need to stir something up and change the town a little bit. Get some attention that has nothing to do with this. Okay, so City Commission office is opening. Where I could run for city commissioner. I have a press conference is the first thing I have at a bed and breakfast with friends who own the bed and breakfast, and I get all these newspapers all the way to Athens, Georgia, the Anderson Independent Mail over in Anderson, South Carolina, because we're up in the corner here. So we're bordering South Carolina, and then, of course, we're not that far from Athens. We're getting those, and then we're getting some people from Atlanta. I literally, on the press conference, had people showing up and going, a press conference for city commissioner of Toccoa, Georgia? Never has happened. Never heard of anybody doing this, holding like a regular, like you would see a press conference like on a bigger type election thing. And I'm 23 years old, getting their attention because everyone on the council was in their 50s and above. And that just...
You were young to run, huh?
Yeah, so I was the youngest to ever run at that time, the youngest to ever be on the ballot at the time, officially on the ballot. No kind of write-in or anything like that. I was officially on the ballot. So this all plays in, and I just get all kinds of free publicity. And a guy by the name of Lee Bowen, and Lee Bowen and I would eventually become friends. He was a former mayor, and he was running against me. And I started my whole campaign out as a decency campaign. I refused to sling any mud. I refused to use anything I might have or not have, whatever, all the dirty politics. I refused to do it. And he held to it too. He wouldn't do anything against me. He used nothing against me. We just had a nice campaign. We talked about what we were going to do. I talked about what I wanted to do, and he talked about what he wanted to do. That's it. But I was getting a lot of free press because of my age. So I spent $259. I believe I've got it over here somewhere, but I can't get to it. I believe, if I remember, he spent $10,000 to beat me. I got 359 votes. He got 741. I got a bigger bang and I got free press. And people knew who I was. In a town of 10,000 people in a city and county combined of 22,500, I am suddenly known outside of both in Toccoa and then outside. Then I did a lot of writing letters to the editor.
Okay.
It felt really good. But the thing that felt the best, was after losing the election. So I lost the election. And
you lost it.
You're right. But I was in the courthouse, and the clerk said, "Hey, Lee wants to talk to you over here at the office over here." And everything. And I said, "Okay." And at this point, I didn't know what he was going to say to me. And, he said, "Well, I want to congratulate you, first thing." I said, "Congratulate me?" I said, "You just beat me." He said, "Yes, true, as far as the election goes." He said, "But you have done a lot of good for the community. You've got a lot of attention here." And he said, "Here's the best thing." He said, "I wish every opponent I ever had was like you, regardless of win or lose." He said, "Because politics is just going to get worse and worse." He said, "But right now," he said, "right here," he said, "this is the best election I've ever had, regardless, even if I'd have lost, if you'd have kept it, as long as you kept it like this," he said, "it would have been," and he was just, really feeding me. And I was like, he said, you got a future ahead of you. He said, so he's really good. So I didn't know. So we kind of became friends, and I ended up working for Don again at a Western Sizzling part-time, and then running the consultant firm. So ended up working for Don a second time.
You didn't want to become a politician?
Well, I kind of wanted to be on the local level there, but then again, I'll try to run again, but there's some bad incidents that happened later that prevented me and made me have to stop and come home to Kentucky. So we'll get to that in a minute. So all this is good, and I always say that I won that election by losing, and everyone that I ever say that to, they always say, "What are you talking about? You lost an election and you say you won?" I said, "I did win. I won, first off, with his friendship. And second off, within 6 months, he passed everything on my platform except one thing. And we had things that were off my platform that my hometown didn't even have at the time, because he was so impressed with me that he knew I was going to, and he passed these things. The only thing he didn't get passed was a police reserve. That was something I threw in there. A town of 10,000 people, that wasn't going to happen anyway. It was just something I threw in there just to be different and get more attention. I honestly knew from the first press conference, from the amount of people that were showing up and press people were sending things to me, that I was getting the attention, and it was positive attention. It wasn't negative attention. And that was not only good for me, that was also good for the city. I knew this. And so things started to change. And the rest of it, I maintained that business up until about the time I left. And then I was involved with some other business things with some people that I shouldn't have been. And I found out the hard way that things just didn't quite work out with those.
What do you mean, what you shouldn't have been? What business did you shouldn't have been?
Okay, so I had been a comic collector too and everything. I was a co-owner with, I had the security consulting firm, and then I was a co-owner with another guy. I won't name this guy because I don't want to give any publicity or anything to his family or anything like that, and I don't want to have to listen to any. Everybody in Toccoa pretty much knows all of this, all of the truth of these stories. Most of the truth. There are some aspects that they didn't know at the time that took time, but a lot of statute of limitations is out and various things like that. So one of the things that happened is I became the co-owner with this guy, and we kind of had some ups and downs, but they weren't all that bad at first. And then in late I guess, middle of 1994. There have been some attempts on my life. There have been some death threats. This one is going to maybe play into the other stuff, but we don't know for sure. My dad and I never really knew for sure later on whether or not, as we kind of did some investigation, basically me.
Hey, Magnum.
Yeah.
Wait right there. Before we get into your death threats and all that's coming next, what I'd like to do is I think I'm going to split this podcast into two.
Okay.
And we're going to have part 2 next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Have we been on that long?
Would you be able to come back and do that next week?
Well, yeah, we can do the rest of it next week. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess I forget.
We're only halfway. We're not even halfway through.
Okay.
And that I think that would be a good thing to do.
Okay, so
you don't mind coming back next week, right?
No, I don't mind doing next week. And that'll give me more time to get another guest on for the regular shows. Yeah, that's not a problem.
So because we're going to get into a lot more juicy stuff next week.
Oh yeah,
about the death threats and about your modeling agency,
right?
And
yeah,
the books,
the books, the other songs, all that stuff, pending stuff. Yeah, all that good stuff. Yeah.
All right. All right.
There's a lot more to the story than can be told, as Rick said in his song. And I think that's a key thing in his song, that he did say there's a lot more in his story than can be told. It's not like it can be told in just 1 or 2 books or a couple of songs. I have lived such an incredible up and down life for so long. Yeah, definitely going to have to do 2. I never thought about how much material was actually there, because I'm not used to being interviewed that much myself, because I quit doing interviews a long time ago. And I will say that when I was on Mindful, which will come out in April, he had made the comment to me afterwards that, there is a lot to your story. And but he kind of condensed it down a little bit, but he got some juice. But yeah, you're getting a lot of stuff. You're getting a lot of details.
Yes, it's pretty detailed. And because I like to be able to, we're coming up on an hour here soon, and I'd like to be able to have another hour to be able to go over the rest. Because at this point, you're only like 23. You just finished being 23.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have another half of 4 to go.
Hard to believe that much stuff.
Right.
Hard to believe that much stuff just happened from 18 to 23, and we ain't even. And I'm going on 56, and we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg, as some people say.
Right. So everybody stay tuned for next week. Everybody stay tuned for next week.
Alrighty.
You want to close it out?
Yeah.
Or you want me to, because I'm supposed to be the host.
Yeah, you're the host today, so go ahead and close it out, and I'll make sure the music does tune it. I've seen you do that. Oh, go ahead.
You close it out, okay? Thank you.
Oh, you want me to close it out? Well, obviously, this was a little different today, and I will come back and let Danielle finish interviewing me for the rest of it. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast today. Like I said, I did grant another interview recently, and I don't do a lot of interviews because I'm usually interviewing other people now. But you know what? Thank you for listening, and there's a lot of people out there that know there's a lot of juicy details to the other side of my story. So we'll get to a little bit more of that next week. All right. Thank you for being here on the 13th Destiny Podcast.